The stars had never felt so peaceful as they did above Valora Prime. Admiral Tai-Ho Park stood at the observation deck of his ship, watching the green and blue planets spin slowly below. It was beautiful in a way that reminded him of Earth, though the forests here glowed faintly at night and the oceans were the color of honey for 30 years. Humans and Valerie had been friends. Not allies in the cold political sense, but true friends. The kind who shared meals and stories and helped each other through dark times. Tai-Ho remembered when he first met a Valori. He was young then, just a lieutenant on a patrol ship that found a damaged Valori vessel drifting near human space. The insectoid beings inside were dying. Their ship had failed, and no one in the galaxy would help them. Humans helped them. It was simply what humans did. That small act of kindness changed everything. The Valori never forgot. When a plague swept through their colonies 10 years later, human doctors came by the thousands. They worked without rest, without payment, because the Valori had become family. The Valori started calling humans a special name in their language. It translated roughly to kin of the heart. Now, over 50,000 humans lived on Valora Prime. Teachers who ran schools for Valora children, doctors who worked in their hospitals, artists who painted murals on their ancient temples, families who had married into Valora clans and raised children together in ways no one thought possible. Captain, Unibeak walked up beside the Admiral. She was young for her rank, but her eyes held the sharp intelligence that had won her command of the battleship Indomitable. She looked down at the planet with a soft smile. "My sister lives down there," she said quietly. "She married a Valori musician 3 years ago. They just had a child." A daughter. Tai-Ho nodded. "No. I received the birth announcement. A human Valori child. The first of her kind. The Directorate hates it," Una said, and her smile faded. "They hate everything about us." The Directorate? The word left a bitter taste in every human mouth. They were the elder races who ruled the Galactic Confederation. Ancient species who believed the galaxy belonged to them alone. They looked at younger races like humans and Valerie. The way a cruel king looks at peasants who dare to dream. Ambassador Doan Shin had warned them many times. The old man had spent 20 years dealing with the Directorate, and he trusted them less with each passing day. "They smile at us in the council chambers," he told Tai-Ho once. "But their eyes are cold. They see our friendship with the Valerie as a threat. Two young species growing strong together. It frightens them." Tai-Ho had listened. He had prepared, but even he could not imagine. What would come next? The attack came without warning on a peaceful morning. Tai-Ho was eating breakfast when the alarm screamed through his ship. He ran to the bridge, his heart already knowing something terrible had happened. The main screen showed a nightmare. Hundreds of warships had appeared around Valora Prime. They carried the symbol of the Hegemony Fleet, the military arm of the Directorate. "What is happening?" Una shouted into her communicator. "We are allies. This is neutral space." The response came as a single broadcast, cold and emotionless. A voice that spoke as if reading a death sentence. "The Valori have violated Statute 7 of the Galactic Confederation. The judgment is extinction. All ships will stand down and allow justice to proceed." Tai-Ho felt his blood turn to ice. Statute 7. That law hasn't been used in 1,000 years. But the hegemony ships did not wait for arguments. They opened fire. The orbital defenses of Valora Prime were built for pirates and small threats, not for a full military invasion. They lasted 11 minutes. Then the bombardment of the surface began. Tai-Ho watched in horror as fire rained down on cities he had visited, on streets where he had walked with Velour friends, on schools where human teachers had just started their morning lessons. He screamed orders to his small fleet, but they were only 12 ships against hundreds. The hegemony ignored them completely. The massacre lasted 6 hours. When it ended, Valora Prime was ash. 8 billion Valori died that day. 50,000 humans burned with them. They died together as they had lived together. Reports would later show that in those final hours, humans and Valori held each other in shelters that could not protect them. They sang songs to the children. They told them not to be afraid. Una collapsed against a wall, tears streaming down her face. Her sister, her niece, gone. But something else happened in those terrible hours. A single Valori ship escaped the blockade. It was small and fast, and its pilot flew with desperate skill through the chaos. Inside was a young ambassador named Lyra, one of the few Valori who had been off-planet when the attack came. She carried something precious. A data core taken from the Confederation's own networks by a Valori spy who gave his life to retrieve it. The data showed everything. The Directorate had planned the massacre for years. The charges against the Valori were lies, invented to justify genocide. The real crime of the Valori was simple. They had become friends with humans. Lyra's ship was damaged and drifting when Yuna's patrol found it 3 days later. The young Valori was barely alive, but she clutched the data core to her chest like a sacred treasure. "Please," she whispered as human medics worked to save her. "Please show the galaxy what they did. Show them the truth. My people deserve to be remembered." Yuna held Lyra's claw in her hand and made a promise. I swear on my sister's memory. I will." The data reached Earth within a week. When people saw the evidence, when they heard the final transmissions from Valora Prime, when they watched a Valori mother singing human lullabies to children as fire fell from the sky, something changed in the heart of humanity. They had always been told the galaxy was too big, it's powerful, too ancient to challenge. They had been told to be quiet, be patient, be grateful for whatever scraps the elder races allowed them. But now their family was dead. Now their friends were ash, and humanity remembered something the galaxy had forgotten. When you hurt the people humans love, there is no corner of the universe dark enough to hide in. There is no fleet large enough to protect you. There is no time long enough to make them forget. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake, and it was about to learn the true meaning of human fury. The United Earth Assembly had never been so silent. 3,000 representatives from every nation, every colony, every human settlement in the stars sat in perfect stillness. On the massive screen before them played the final transmission from Valora Prime. A Valora mother sat in a burning shelter, surrounded by children. Some were Valori, with their gentle insectoid features. Some were human, with round faces and frightened eyes. The mother held them all close as the ceiling cracked above them. She was singing. It was an old human lullaby that the Valori had learned and loved. Her voice was soft and sweet, even as fire ate through the walls. "Sleep now, little ones. Dream of green fields and warm suns. Dream of tomorrow." Transmission ended in static. President Mingi Quan stood at the podium. She was 53 years old, a former soldier who had fought in border conflicts most humans had forgotten. Her face was hard as stone, but tears ran freely down her cheeks. She did not wipe them away. "My brother lived on Valora Prime," she said, her voice steady despite the tears. "He was a teacher. He taught Valori children how to paint. He used to send me pictures they made. Happy pictures, full of color and hope." She paused to breathe. "He died 3 days ago. He died with his students around him, telling them stories to keep them calm. The Directorate says this was justice. They say that Valori committed crimes. We have seen the evidence. We know the truth. The only crime the Valori committed was loving us." The silence grew heavier. "For 200 years, we have been good members of the Galactic Confederation. We followed their rules. We paid their taxes. We smiled when they mocked us. We bowed when they threatened us. And what did it bring us? Our friends are dead. Our family is ash. 50,000 human souls gone. 8 billion Valori erased from existence." Her voice rose now, filling the chamber. "The Confederation has sent us a message. They say the matter is closed. They advise us to accept this judgment and maintain peace." She laughed bitterly. "Peace. They speak of peace while the bodies of our children are still warm." She looked across the assembly, meeting the eyes of every representative. "I will not accept this. I cannot accept this. Today, I ask you to stand with me. Today I ask you to declare war on the Galactic Directorate and every species that supports them. Not for conquest. Not for power. but for justice. For the memory of everyone who died believing that the galaxy could be kind. The vote was unanimous. Every single hand rose. Every single voice spoke as one. War, Ambassador Doan Shin delivered humanity's response to the Confederation 3 days later. He stood before the massive council chamber on Station Prime, surrounded by representatives of 200 species. Most of them looked amused. Some laughed openly. Doan was old now, his hair white and his back bent. But his eyes burned with a fire that made the laughter fade. The Human Federation formally declares war on the Directorate and the hegemony. Fleet, he said clearly, you murdered our family. You called it justice. Now you will learn what justice truly means. Elder Voroth, the ancient being who led the Directorate, made a sound that might have been a chuckle. He was older than human civilization, a creature of crystal and shadow who had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. You have 47 warships, he said with contempt. We have 15,000. Your declaration is not courage. It is suicide. Doan smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You are wrong, he said. But you will not believe me until you see it yourself. So let me show you. He pressed a button on his communicator. The screens around the council chamber flickered and changed. They showed a region of space that had been empty for centuries, dead systems that no one visited. The screens showed ships. Thousands of them. Warships larger and more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They poured out of hidden shipyards built in asteroid fields and hollow moons. They carried weapons that made the hegemony's best look like children's toys. 3,000 warships. The Judgment Fleet. The council chamber fell silent. For 200 years you treated us as fools, Doan said. You thought we were too young, too weak, too emotional to be a threat. But humans have long memories, Elder Voroth. We remembered how you treated other young species. We remembered how you crushed anyone who might one day challenge you. And we prepared. He turned and walked toward the exit. General Wu Jinhan sends his regards. He built those ships. Dr. Somi Yoon designed the weapons they carry. They have been waiting for this day. We all have. At the door, he paused and looked back. You wanted to know why humans loved the Valere so much? Why we cried for a species that was not our own? Let me tell you. Because when everyone else in the galaxy looked at us with contempt, the Valore looked at us with kindness. They called us kin of the heart. They meant it. And now, you have killed them. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow filled the entire chamber. There is an old human saying, those who make peaceful change impossible make violent change inevitable. You had 200 years to treat us fairly. You chose cruelty instead. Now you will face the consequences. He left. The doors closed behind him. Elder Voroth sat in silence for a long moment. Around him, the other Directorate members stirred uneasily. They had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They had crushed rebellions from species far more numerous than humans. They had never been afraid, but something in the old ambassador's eyes had disturbed them, something they could not name. It changes nothing, Voroth said finally. They are still outnumbered. They are still young. They will fight, they will lose, and they will submit. All species do eventually. He was wrong. He would learn this soon, and the lesson would cost him everything. On Earth, Admiral Taiho Park stood before the assembled captains of the Judgment Fleet, 3,000 commanders, each chosen for their skill and their dedication. They wore black uniforms with a single symbol over their hearts, 2 hands clasped together, one human and one Valore. Today, we go to war, Taiho said. Not for land, not for power, not for revenge. We go to war because somewhere in this galaxy, there may be other species like the Valore. Kind species, gentle species. Species who might one day reach out to us in friendship, only to be destroyed by the Directorate's fear. He looked at Unibeak, who stood in the front row. Her eyes were red, but her jaw was set with determination. We fight for them. We fight for every species that ever suffered under the Directorate's rule. We fight so that no one else has to watch their family burn while the galaxy calls it justice. He raised his fist. For the Valori. For humanity. For everyone who deserves better than this. 3,000 voices answered as one. For everyone. The judgment fleet moved toward the stars, and the galaxy trembled. Commander Junho Kong floated in the darkness of space, his ship completely silent. Around him, 11 other vessels drifted like ghosts. They were the Ghost Squadron, humanity's most elite pilots, trained for missions that should have been impossible. Below them hung the hegemony's largest shipyard. It stretched across the void like a mechanical spider, its arms holding 400 warships in various stages of repair. Thousands of workers moved through its corridors. Defense platforms surrounded it on all sides. Sensors swept the area constantly. None of them detected the Ghost Squadron. JUNHO smiled inside his helmet. The phantom drives that Dr. So Mi-yoon had designed were beautiful things. They bent light and energy around his ship, making it invisible to every sensor the galaxy had ever invented. The Directorate did not know they existed. They were about to find out. Ghost Leader to all units. Gunho whispered into his communicator. Targets confirmed. Execute on my mark. Second in command. Lieutenant Hannah Cho responded immediately. Ghost 2 ready. Let's give them something to remember. Junho thought of his parents, who had retired to a small colony near Valora Prime. They had been visiting Valora friends when the attack came. Their bodies were never found. Mark, 12 ships, came alive at once. They screamed through space faster than the eye could follow, firing weapons that the Directorate had never seen. Plasma bolts that burned through armor like paper. Missiles that split into 100 smaller missiles. Energy beams that cut through shield generators as if they were not there. The shipyard had no chance. Its defenses were designed for attacks from outside, not for enemies already inside its perimeter. Within 3 minutes, the main reactor exploded. Within 10 minutes, the entire structure was breaking apart. 400 warships died before they could even launch. By the time the hegemony reinforcements arrived, the Ghost Squadron was already gone. Vanished into the dark like the spirits they were named for. The news reached the Directorate 6 hours later. Elder Vorath listened in silence as his advisors reported the damage. 400 ships. Thousands of soldiers. The largest shipyard in the sector. All destroyed by 12 human vessels that no one had seen coming. How is this possible? Demanded one of the council members. How did they bypass our sensors? Unknown, the military commander admitted. We have no data. Our sensors detected nothing until the explosions began. Vorath's crystalline body flickered with colors that indicated anger. Find out how they did this. And increase patrols around all military installations. This will not happen again. But it did happen again. 3 more times in the next month. Supply convoys vanished. Communication stations went dark. A military base on a remote moon was destroyed so completely that investigators could not even determine what weapons had been used. The galaxy began to whisper. Humans were not fighting like any species before them. They did not form battle lines and crash against enemy fleets. They struck from shadows, from angles no one expected, with weapons no one understood. And then they disappeared. Captain Unibeak led the next phase of the war. She took the Indomitable and 12 battleships to the Corvin system, a neutral zone, where many species gathered to trade. She did not attack anyone. She did not threaten anyone. She simply broadcast a message on every channel. People of the galaxy, I am Captain Unibeak of the Human Federation. I come not as a conqueror, but as a witness. 3 months ago, the Directorate murdered 8 billion Valori and 50,000 humans. They called it justice. We have proof that it was genocide, planned and executed by Elder Vorath himself. She paused to let the words sink in. We do not ask you to fight beside us. We understand that you are afraid. The Directorate has ruled for 10,000 years. They have crushed every rebellion, silenced every protest, destroyed every species that dared to question them. Her voice hardened. But we are not every species. We are humans, and we will not stop until the Directorate answers for their crimes. So we offer you a choice. Stand with the murderers, or stand aside. There is no middle ground. For 3 days, nothing happened. Yuna waited, her ships holding position. Then, slowly, ships began to leave the Directorate's allied fleet. One by one, they powered down their weapons and moved away. 17 species formally withdrew from the Confederation that week. They did not join humanity's war. They simply refused to fight against them. Some sent quiet messages of support. Others shared intelligence about Directorate positions. A few even opened their ports to human ships needing repairs. It was not much. But it was a beginning. Lyra, the last Valori ambassador, played the most important role of all. She recovered slowly from her injuries, cared for by human doctors who treated her like family. When she was strong enough, she asked to speak to the galaxy. Her message was broadcast from the Indomitable, carried across every network that would accept it. She stood before the camera, small and fragile, her wings still damaged from her escape. But her voice was clear. "My name is Lyra. I am Valori. 3 months ago, I watched my world die." She showed images as she spoke. Pictures of Valori cities before the attack. Pictures of humans and Valori working together, playing together, living together. Pictures of the children who had died in the bombardment. "The Directorate says my people were criminals. They say we deserved extinction. But I will tell you what our real crime was. We loved the humans. We saw something in them that other species missed. We saw kindness, loyalty, the willingness to help strangers simply because it was right." Her voice broke slightly. "When the plague came to our worlds, no one helped us. Not the Directorate. Not the Confederation. Not a single one of the elder races who claimed to value life. Only the humans came. They sent doctors and medicine and hope. They asked for nothing in return." She held up a small object. It was a child's drawing, scorched at the edges, but still visible. It showed a Valori and a human holding hands under a yellow sun. My niece drew this. She was 4 years old. She wanted to grow up and visit Earth, to see the blue oceans she had heard so much about. She died in her mother's arms, singing human songs. Tears ran down Lyra's face, but she did not look away from the camera. "I am the last ambassador of a dead people. I have no army. I have no power. I have only the truth. The Directorate murdered us because we dared to love. They will do the same to any species that challenges their rule. They've done it before. They will do it again." She straightened her broken wings with obvious pain, unless someone stops them. The humans have chosen to fight. They fight not for conquest, but for justice. Not for power, but for memory. They fight because they loved us, and they will not let our deaths mean nothing. She looked directly into the camera. "I ask nothing of you. I expect nothing. But if there is any kindness left in this galaxy, any courage, any hope, remember the Valori. Remember what we stood for. Remember what they did to us. And ask yourself one question." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Who will they come for next?" The message spread across the galaxy like fire. On 100 worlds, people watched and wept. On 1,000 stations, species who had lived in fear for generations began to whisper. On ships throughout the Confederation, soldiers looked at each other and wondered if they were fighting for the right side. The Directorate tried to block the broadcast, but it was too late. The truth was out, and truth, once released, cannot be captured again. Admiral Taiho Park watched the message from his flagship. Beside him, Yuna stood with tears in her eyes. Even Junho, hardened by a lifetime of combat, wiped his face when it ended. "That was brave," Taiho said quietly. "She has given us something more valuable than any weapon." Yuna asked. Taiho looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy that had seemed so cold and hostile. "Hope," he said. "She has given the galaxy hope." 18 months of war had changed everything. The galaxy that once laughed at humanity's declaration now watched in stunned silence as the Directorate's empire crumbled piece by piece. Admiral Taiho Park stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Resolve, studying the holographic map of the galaxy. Red markers showed Directorate territory. Blue markers showed human-controlled space. When the war began, the map was almost entirely red. Now, blue spread across it like a rising tide. "Report from the Eastern Front," his communications officer announced. "Commodore Jiho-Ru's Vengeance Wing has taken the Karos system. Enemy fleet destroyed. Civilian population unharmed." Taiho nodded. Jiho was a good commander. He had lost his entire family on Valora Prime, his wife and 3 children. Many commanders would have become cruel after such loss. Jiho had become something different. He fought with terrible fury, but he never allowed his soldiers to harm civilians. "We are better than them," he always said. "We must prove it with every action." This was how humanity fought. With anger, yes. With determination, certainly. But never with cruelty. Every world they captured, they protected. Every enemy soldier who surrendered was treated with respect. Every civilian was evacuated before battles began. The galaxy noticed. Species that had expected humans to become monsters watched in confusion as they became liberators instead. On worlds the Directorate had oppressed for centuries. People emerged from hiding to find human soldiers offering food and medicine, not conquerors. Helpers Elder Vorath did not understand it. None of the Directorate did. They had ruled through fear for 10,000 years. The idea that anyone could win a war through kindness seemed absurd to them, so they decided to use the one weapon they believed would break humanity's spirit. The silence was ancient and terrible. It was a bioweapon created long ago, designed to kill specific species while leaving others untouched. The Confederation had banned it centuries ago after it wiped out 3 entire civilizations, but the Directorate had kept samples hidden, waiting for a day when they might be needed. That day had come. The target was New Sol, human colony of 2 million people. It was a beautiful world filled with farms and cities and children who had never known war. The Directorate chose it carefully. They wanted humanity to suffer. They wanted to show the galaxy that human kindness was weakness. Commodore Jiho learned of the plan through captured intelligence. He immediately sent word to Admiral Taiho, but the human fleet was too far away. They could not reach New Sol in time. "There must be something we can do," Yuna said desperately when she heard the news. "We cannot let them kill 2 million people." Lieutenant Hannah Cho stepped forward. She was small and quiet, the best pilot in the Ghost Squadron. She had followed Commander Junho Kong through a dozen impossible missions without a single complaint. "I can reach them," she said simply. Everyone turned to look at her. "The weapon ship is fast, but I am faster. If I push my engines beyond their limits, I can intercept them before they reach New Sol." Gunho grabbed her arm. "Hannah, that would burn out your engines. You would have no way to escape." She looked at him with calm eyes. "I know." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what she was saying. This was not a rescue mission. It was a sacrifice. "Oh," Kunho said. "I will not allow it. There must be another way." Hana smiled sadly. "There is no other way. And you know it." Shh. She gently removed his hand from her arm. "My parents died on Valora Prime, my brother, my grandmother, everyone I loved. For 18 months, I have fought to avenge them. But vengeance is not enough. It was never enough." She looked around the room at her fellow soldiers. "Those children on New Sol have done nothing wrong. They have their whole lives ahead of them. If my death can save them, then my death has meaning." "That is more than most people can say." Admiral Taiho stepped forward. His face was lined with pain, but his voice was steady. "Lieutenant Cho, this is not an order. This is not a duty. This is a choice. Are you certain?" She stood at attention and saluted. "Admiral, I have never been more certain of anything in my life." He returned the salute. "Then go with our gratitude and our love. May you find peace among the stars." Hannah's ship launched within the hour. She flew faster than any human had ever flown, pushing her engines until they screamed with strain. Behind her, the entire fleet listened to her communications in silence. Ghost 2 to fleet. "I have visual on the weapon ship. It is larger than expected. heavily armed. But I can see the silence containment unit. One good hit should destroy it. Junho's voice came through the speakers. Hannah, I never told you. I should have told you a long time ago. I know, she replied softly. I always knew. Tell the others I was not afraid. Tell them I went smiling. She cut her communications. The weapon ship detected her at the last moment. Its defenses opened fire, filling space with deadly energy. Hannah dodged and weaved, her small ship dancing through the barrage like a leaf in a storm. She took hits. Her shields failed. Fire spread through her cockpit. But she did not stop. Her ship struck the weapon ship at full speed, directly where the silence was stored. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. When it faded, nothing remained. The bioweapon was destroyed. New Sol was saved. 2 million people lived because one woman chose to die. Admiral, Taiho ordered a moment of silence across the entire fleet. For 5 minutes, not a single human spoke. They simply remembered. Then Yuna stepped to the communications console. Broadcast this message galaxy-wide, she said. Her voice shook with emotion. This is Captain Unibeak of the Human Federation. Today, the Directorate attempted to use the silence against our colony of New Sol. They wanted to murder 2 million innocent people with a banned weapon of mass destruction. She paused to compose herself. They failed. Lieutenant Hannah Cho intercepted the weapon ship and destroyed it. She gave her life to save strangers. She asked for nothing in return. Her last words were these. She took a breath. For the children of Valora, for everyone they silenced, we do not forget. The broadcast reached every corner of the galaxy. Species who had remained neutral watched in shock. The Directorate had used a banned weapon. They had tried to commit genocide again, and a single human had stopped them through pure sacrifice. 40 more civilizations withdrew from the Confederation that week. The Directorate found itself increasingly alone. Dr. Taiwan, on humanity's greatest weapons designer, came to Admiral Taiho with a new creation. He called it the Harbinger. Unlike the Directorate's weapons, it was not designed to kill. It was designed to disable. It disrupts their systems, the doctor explained. Engines, weapons, shields, everything. A fleet hit by this weapon cannot fight, but the crews survive. They can be captured, rescued, even released. No unnecessary death? Taiho studied the weapon with wonder. You built this instead of something that could destroy them more efficiently? Dr. Taiwan met his eyes. We are not them, Admiral. We never will be. If we win this war by becoming monsters, we have lost everything we fight for. Hannah understood that. She died to save lives, not to take them. Let us honor her memory by doing same. The Admiral placed his hand on the doctor's shoulder. Fit the Harbinger to every ship in the fleet. We will show the galaxy that strength and mercy can exist together. The final offensive began 3 weeks later. The combined human fleet moved toward the Directorate's capital, Throne Prime. They carried weapons that could disable armies without slaughter. They carried the memory of Hana Cho in their hearts, and they carried justice. The space above Throne Prime burned with light. 2,000 human warships faced 4,000 Directorate vessels in the largest battle the galaxy had ever seen. Behind the human fleet, 70 observer ships from neutral species watched. They called themselves the Tribunal. They had come to witness the end. Whatever that end might be, Admiral Taiho Park stood on the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, calm despite the chaos around him. Beside him, Captain Unibeak commanded the tactical displays, her voice steady as she directed squadrons through the battle. Enemy formation breaking on the left flank. Commodore Jiho's wing is pushing through. Ghost Squadron has reached the enemy flagship's shield perimeter. Commander Junho reports, ready to proceed. Tell Junho to begin the broadcast. This was the true mission. Not to destroy the Directorate's fleet, though they would if necessary. The mission was to show the galaxy the truth. Every truth, every lie that Elder Vorath had hidden for 10,000 years. Commander Junho Kong floated in the heart of the enemy flagship, surrounded by his Ghost Squadron. They had slipped through the defenses like shadows, just as they had practiced countless times. Now, they stood before the Directorate's central data core, the archive that held 10 millennia of secrets. "Beginning data extraction," Junho reported. His voice was tight with anticipation. "Broadcasting in 3, 2, 1. Every screen in the galaxy flickered. Every communication channel carried the same signal. The Directorate's own records, their own words, their own orders. Displayed for all to see, the first files showed the true history of Statute 7. It had never been a legitimate law. It was a tool created to justify the destruction of any species the Directorate found inconvenient. The Valori were not the first victims. They were simply the latest. The second files showed older genocides. Species whose names had been erased from history. Worlds burned to ash and then forgotten. Millions upon millions of lives ended because they dared to grow strong, or dared to question, or simply dared to exist in ways the Directorate did not approve. The third files showed the planning of the Valora Prime massacre. Communications between Elder Voreth and his council, discussing how to remove the human Valori threat before it became uncontrollable. They had debated for years. They had chosen their moment carefully. They had never felt a moment of guilt. The broadcasts reached every corner of the galaxy. On the observer ships, the tribunal watched in horror. These were species who had lived under Directorate rule, who had believed the elder races were wise and just. Now they saw the truth. Elder Voreth's voice came across the communication channels, desperate and angry. "These records are fabricated. Human lies. Do not believe this propaganda." But his own council members were staring at their screens in shock. Some of them had not known the full extent of their leader's crimes. Some of them had willingly participated and were now terrified of consequences. None of them could deny the evidence. Captain Unibeak pushed the Indomitable through the enemy lines, her ship battered and burning, but still fighting. She had lost count of the hits they had taken. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Half her weapons destroyed. But the ship kept moving. "We are approaching Throne Prime's orbital perimeter," her navigator reported. "We will have a clear shot at the capital in 2 minutes." Yuno looked at the planet below. It was beautiful in its way. Crystalline towers stretched toward the sky. Gardens of light floated among the clouds. Millions of beings lived there, most of them ordinary people who had nothing to do with the Directorate's crimes. "Hold fire," she ordered. "We are not here to destroy. We are here to end this." Admiral Taiho opened a direct channel to Elder Voreth. The ancient being appeared on his screen, his crystalline form flickering with colors of fear and rage. "You asked why humans fight so hard for a species not their own?" Taiho said calmly. "You could not understand it. You thought we were foolish, emotional, weak. Let me explain it to you now." He gestured to the images still broadcasting across the galaxy. "The Valori called us kin of the heart. They meant it. They saw something in us that you never could. They saw that love does not make us weak. It makes us unstoppable. You can kill our friends. You can burn our homes. You can destroy everything we have built. But you cannot kill what we feel. You cannot burn the memories we carry. You cannot destroy the promises we make." His voice hardened. "You murdered our family. Now you will answer for it. But not to us. To them," he pointed at the tribunal ships, the representatives of 70 species who had watched the broadcasts. "Surrender now and face judgment. True judgment by the species you wronged. Let them decide your fate. Or continue fighting and prove to the galaxy that you are exactly the monsters we have shown them you are." Elder Voreth was silent for a long moment. Then he laughed, a harsh and bitter sound. "We have ruled for 10,000 years. We will not bow to insects and animals and emotional primitives. Fleet, destroy them all. Destroy everything." But his orders were not followed. Across the hegemony fleet, crews looked at each other. They had seen the broadcasts. They had seen the truth. They had spent their lives believing they served justice and order. Now they knew they served murderers. One by one, ships powered down their weapons. One by one, crews refused to fight. "We will not die for lies. a hegemony captain broadcast openly. We surrender to the Human Federation. The mutiny spread like wildfire. Within an hour, the battle was over. Not because the humans had destroyed the enemy fleet, but because the enemy fleet had chosen to stop fighting. Elder Vorith and his council were captured aboard their flagship. They were brought before the tribunal in chains of energy that even their ancient powers could not break. 70 species looked down at them, and there was no mercy in their eyes. The trial lasted 3 months. Every crime was documented. Every victim was named when their names could still be found. The Directorate was dissolved. Its leaders were sentenced to eternal imprisonment in a dimension without light or time. A new galactic council formed in its place. This time, every species had a voice. This time, the young and the old stood as equals. This time, humanity was not alone. On the ashes of Valora Prime, a memorial was built. It was simple but beautiful. A statue of a Velor and a human child, holding hands, looking up at the stars. Around its base, the names of the dead were carved in letters of light. 8 billion Valor, 50,000 humans. Together in death as they had been in life. Lyra stood before the memorial, her wings finally healed. Beside her stood Captain Unibeak, Admiral Tai-Ho Park, Commander Junho Kong, and Commodore Ji-Ho Roo. Behind them stood thousands of humans and thousands of Velori survivors from distant colonies who had come to pay their respects. "We are few now," Lyra said softly. "The Velori who remain could fit in a single city. But we are not extinct. We live, and we will rebuild." She turned to Yuna with tears in her eyes. "Because of you. Because humans refuse to let us be forgotten. Because one species in this cold galaxy chose to love instead of fear." Yuna embraced her gently. "You are our family. You always will be." Admiral Tai-Ho Park retired to New Seoul after the war. He found a small house on a quiet hill and planted a garden. Lyra had given him Velori seeds, and he tended them carefully. When they bloomed, they glowed faintly in the darkness, just like the forests of the world that was lost. President Mingi Quan addressed the new Galactic Council 1 year after the war ended. Representatives of 200 species listened in silence. "We did not fight for conquest," she said. "We did not fight for power. We did not fight for revenge. We fought because when the universe took our family, we refused to let their memory die." She looked across the council chamber at faces of every shape and color and form. "Some of you feared us. Some of you thought we would become the new tyrants, the new directorate, ruling through force as they did. But that was never our purpose. We are humans. We protect. We remember. We love." She smiled, and there was hope in it. "Let this be known across every star and every world. Humanity protects its own, and our own is anyone who stands with us in kindness. If you are ever alone, if you are ever afraid, if you ever face darkness that seems impossible to overcome, reach out to us. We will answer. We will always answer." She raised her hand in the gesture that Valori used to show friendship, a gesture humans had adopted as their own. "For the lost. For everyone who dreams of a better galaxy, we stand ready." 200 species rose and returned the gesture, and somewhere in the garden on New Seoul, Admiral Tai-Ho Park sat among the glowing flowers watching the stars. He thought of friends lost and battles won. He thought of Lieutenant Hannah Cho, who had given everything so that others might live. He thought of the Valori mother singing to human children as fire fell from the sky. He wept, and then he smiled. They had done it. They had delivered justice. Not through cruelty, but through courage. Not through revenge, but through love. The galaxy would never forget.